festival film critic kind of audiences. This is the first time I've ever watched the film where people were like hooting and hollering and screaming. It was a fucking boy. What's beautiful about it is this year was like when the kid who made this years ago made it. This was his version of a prayer, man. This was him trying to express his faith. This was him going like, look, I know how they told me to express my faith in church all those years, but this is my fucking prayer. This is how I would do it if I was in charge and shit. So listening to the audience be like, wow, and interact with the movie in a fervent, almost congregational way is really validating for the little kid somewhere inside of all this who started this journey, who just dreamed of being able to make a movie that showed people how he felt about his faith, made them feel that way as well. So whether or not people believe in the sort of stuff that the movie presents and whatnot, the fact that we were all under one roof, man, with one purpose, raising our voices, without a fucking church, what is? You know? I never would have left. All right, let's open it up to you kids. Start going questions. Right there, bang.
Hi.
What's your name? What's your name?
Hi, my name is Ben.
Ben's going first. Give it up for Ben. All right, Ben.
Alright, so other than the artifacts at the secret stash, have any memorabilia survived from Dogma?
What do we have from Dogma? I'm trying to think. At one point we had the armor, Ben's armor with the cut off wings and shit. And that was in the secret stash for a while, but we did an auction a few years ago where we got rid of some stuff. And so an editor on Deadliest Catch, dude who helped us out with Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy cartoon movie and stuff. He won a bunch of Emmys and shit like that. He bought the armor. So he's like, you ever need it again? And I was like, well, we're talking sequel now. But I'm trying to think what else, man. There's some stuff like that's, if there's anything, it's in the glass cases at the secret stash. The original Zippo lighter, but we made a run of those and stuff for a long time. But the original one is in there. Yeah, I don't know. Buddy Christ, duh, of course. My favorite prop in the entire world, Buddy Christ, we saved, and he's in Jay and Silent Bob's secret stash. He's been in every incarnation of the store, the one that used to be on the TV show, and the one that exists now. So he's got his own little kind of kneeler. There's a church kneeler we bought. And it's like wonderful. But I always maintain that when I die, I want to be cremated and stuck up the ass of Buddy Christ. You know, so that people have a reason to go to the store after I'm dead. They're like, oh, this is where he's buried, in fucking Buddy Christ. But yeah, people have come in for years, like, how much for the Buddy Christ? And I always tell the people working the store, like, tell them $1 million. Like, if they're willing to pay $1 million, I'll sell my faith. But nobody's had $1 million yet. So far, we've held on to it. All right, yeah, way up top right there. Yes. Will I sign it? Yeah, find me later on. If you can. Right there, go ahead.
What was it like assembling that cast? And was there someone in my mind for a part that couldn't be there?
Oh, yeah. Assembling the cast is fucking nuts, because when I look back at this movie, this is me at the height of my abilities, man. When I'm like at my most powerful and shit. I was coming off of Chasing Amy, which everybody fucking loves. Critically speaking, like we started with a bunch of people love that. We did Mallrats, one right in the toilet, everyone hated it. Now people love it. So good! Chasing Amy brought us back to respectability and shit, and people were like, he's an interesting filmmaker, he'll do great things. They were wrong, whatever. So at that point, casting Dogma was like, we were at the best place we could be. Case in point, I didn't go out to Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman came into us. John Gordon, who was my friend who worked at Miramax back in the day, and then he went on to produce like David O. Russell's movies and stuff. John called me one day, and he's like, you'll never guess who we just had in the office. I was like, who? He goes, Alan Rickman. I was like, Hans fucking Gruber was in the office? You made it out of that building alive? Holy shit. I was like, what was he there for? And he's like, we're talking to him about this Merchant Ivory movie that we're doing, but all he wanted to talk about was the guy who made Chasing Amy. And I was like, I made Chasing Amy. So John was like, maybe we should send him the script, man. I was like, he'd be a perfect Metatron. And we sent him the script. Fastest response I've ever gotten from an actor in my life, man. Fucking, we sent him the script, and we had to FedEx it. Couldn't like email it or anything back then. But he got it that day and called mid-afternoon to be like, oh, I'm in. And he brought casting suggestions. So he was like, do you have a God yet? I said, no. He goes, my friend would be great. She'd love to do this. I said, who's your friend? He goes, Emma Thompson. And I was like, do you have any more fucking friends that you want to bring and shit? So I was like, yeah. So Emma Thompson was going to play God for a long time. And then Emma Thompson wrote me a really nice letter where she was like, I'm going to have to drop out of the movie because I've decided to stay in England and try to have a baby before it's too late. So, you know, it was understandable and whatnot. And then I was doing an interview and somebody was like, is Emma Thompson in the movie? I said she was going to be, but she decided to stay in England because she's going to try to have a baby and stuff. So we got to find somebody else. And then I got another letter from Emma Thompson. And she was like, stop fucking telling people that I'm going to have a baby. She's like, I opened up my door and there were 30 paparazzi taking pictures and shit. So I told Alan, I was like, I think your friend's mad at me. He's like, she'll get over it. So, you know, we eventually got to Atlantis for our God. At one point, you know, Atlantis I had offered her the lead in the movie early on, before we were even done with Chasing Amy. We were post-production on Chasing Amy. And she was like, that's too big a part for me. I don't think I can handle that stuff. And so, time had gone by. We were just about to go to Pittsburgh, shoot the movie. I was driving to Pittsburgh, and I had one of those early cell phones, this giant fucking brick. And she called me on the drive. I was like, how'd you get this number? She was like, I called your dad, I guess? She had like my old phone number, like my home phone number from when I grew up and shit. And she called my father, and my father was like, who is this? And she goes, Alanis. And he goes, Alanis who? He doesn't know any Alanis. And she goes, Alanis Morissette. And my dad goes, oh, you're that girl from the theater. And shit. It was in the song, she was like, would you down on you in a theater? So she's like, I am the theater girl. And he goes, well, here he's got a car in his phone. If you want to call him, you can call him on the phone car, his car phone. So he gave her the number, and so she called him. And, you know, I was like, what's up? She's like, I just got back from India. This is when she would write that next album and do that song, Thank You. She's like, I just got back from India. I feel rested. I feel like inspired, you know, and I realized I said no to you too fast. I was scared when you asked me to be the lead because I was like, I'm not ready for that, but I know that I'm the person who should move directly into fear, not away from it. So I regret saying no. Now, I know you probably cast that role already. I said, yeah, we did. And she goes, but if there's anything left in the movie, I would love to come play with you. And I was like, well, there's one small but crucial role. And she knew the script. She was like, who is it? I was like, God. And she was like, you want me to play God? Why? I was like, I've always believed that God is Canadian. So yeah, we got so fucking lucky with that cast. Ben and Matt were coming right off of Good Will Hunting. This is the movie they did right after that, man. Chris Rock had just done Roll with the New, man. His album was fucking killing it and shit. Rickman was a legend. George Carlin, fucking legend. So Carlin, we reached out to specifically. I'd been a huge Carlin fan my whole life. Carlin was like a gift to me from my father. You know, like when I was a kid, my father brought me comedy albums home from work. He worked at the post office and shit. And he said there was a guy who sold old records out of the back of his car at night. This old man would buy me like fucking comedy albums. He knew I loved comedy. And he gave me the George Carlin album. He gave me Class Clown. And he said, do not let your mother hear you. You gotta listen on headphones. And so I always did and shit. One day I was listening on headphones in my room and shit, big Wi-Fi with headphones. Not Wi-Fi, a hi-fi with the headphones. And my mom comes in, she's talking, I don't hear her and shit. And she pulls the plug and hears, cocksucker motherfucker Tim. She was like, what is this? Where'd you get this? I was like, Dad gave it to me. And so, you know, my mom was like, you can't give him albums like this. He can't listen to George Carlin. He could only listen to good, clean comedians like Bill Cosby. I continued listening to George Carlin through all of my life and whatnot. I was an acolyte. I was a huge fan. He expanded my horizons. He expanded my vocabulary as well. And then at a certain point, like I went to see him. My brother went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, and he called me one day. He's like, George Carlin's gonna be playing here, so I got his tickets and shit. I was like, are you fucking shitting me? And George was on stage, and it was from like me to you. Like I was sitting there, I could have taken a tissue, hurled it at him, and shattered his hip because I was so close. So I saw him live once. It was amazing and whatnot. I'd always been a fan, so we decided like let's fucking reach out to George to play Cardinal Blick. So we get his manager's number, this guy named Jerry. And he's like, hello. We say, hey man, my name's Kevin Smith, my associate Scott Mosier. We make movies, man. We want to talk to you about George. He goes, okay, what movies you make? I said, we make Clerks. He goes, never heard of it. And I was like, all right, we made Mallrats. He goes, never heard of that. And I was like, well, nobody did. I said, we made Chasing Amy, because that had just happened and shit. And he was like, nope, never heard of it. And I was like, well, the guys who were in our movie, they were in Good Will Hunting. He goes, Ben and Matt? I've heard of that. I said, yeah, it's a Ben and Matt movie, man. That's what we want George to be in. He said, what would George play? I was like, George would play Catholic Cardinal. He goes, oh, fuck, he'll love that. I said, well, I'm going to be on the Conan and O'Brien show, late night with Conan and O'Brien, same night as George. So I can bring the script, man, and you can introduce me. And he goes, absolutely, man. You bring the script, I'll introduce you to George. Shit. Hung up. Couldn't wait. I was going to meet George Carlin. The thing is, between the time I hung up and the time we had the meeting, George Carlin's wife prematurely, sadly, passed away. So George was kind of, as you would imagine, down in the dumps. He lost his best friend. So when he showed up to do the show, he didn't do a new piece. He did what they call desk piece, something you could sit down, an older piece that you could actually just read and stuff. Most people would have just canceled the gig altogether, but he was nothing if not a professional and stuff. So he showed up, and you could tell he wasn't in the right headspace, or a headspace for me to be like, hey man, did you ever meet Silent Bob? So I told Jerry, I gave him the script, I was like, hey man, you don't have to introduce me, like I know, I see he's going through a thing, well, please pass on my condolences, and gave him the script at your leisure, no rush whatsoever and stuff. I know he's going through real things. Next day, I got a fucking phone call. Jerry going like, George read your script, and he wants to meet with you about it. He's going, can you meet with him at the Four Seasons Hotel Friday, tomorrow at noon? And I was like, fuck yeah, man, definitely. And I was in New Jersey, and it was 6 o'clock at night. So I was like, I gotta figure this shit out fast. And I did, and I got there, and I'm late for everything, kids, but that was the only time in my life I've ever been not just on time, but I arrived early. You know, we were supposed to meet at noon. I got there at 11 o'clock. Scouted out the entire restaurant, found the perfect seat where I would see him coming in from any possible entrance and shit. And he would see me no matter what, man. I was the only person there. It was me and the wait staff for an hour. And then at noon on the button, legend walks through the door. And this is how George Carlin walked into the Four Seasons restaurant to look for So he's like, George Carlin. I was like, oh my God, I know who you are, man. I'm a huge fan. He goes, I can tell by reading your script. He's going, I said, you like it? He goes, I kind of feel responsible for it. I was like, well, you're not wrong, man. You definitely are an inspiration. He goes, inspiration, Kevin. There are parts of the script I think I deserve co-screenwriting. I was like, does that mean you want to do it? He goes, well, I do want to do it, but we got an issue, and that's why I wanted to sit here and talk to you about it. I said, what is it? And he goes, well, as you know, my wife just passed away. I was like, I'm so sorry. He goes, me too. She was really cool. He's going, but I'm just not ready to take off my wedding band yet. It's too soon. Can't do it, man. Been wearing this for years. Not willing to take it off right now. He's going, but I realize that's a problem because I'll be playing the Catholic Cardinal. They don't wear wedding rings. He's going, so we're in an impasse. But I came up with a solution, I think. I was thinking I could wear a Band-Aid around my wedding band. So nobody would see that my wedding band was under the Band-Aid. It would just look like the Cardinal was clumsy and cut his finger or something like that. Maybe that's not what you want for your movie. But if I could wear a Band-Aid around my wedding band, I think I could play your Cardinal Blick. What do you think? And I was like, I wish you were my fucking father! I was like, that's the most beautiful shit I ever heard you could wear Band-Aids all over your fucking body, man. So he came to play with us. This motherfucker was nothing if not a committed professional. Even though he was the world's greatest comedian, that's not what George Carlin wanted to be. George Carlin wanted to be Danny Kaye when he was a kid. His mom's favorite actor, song and dancing and shit. George wanted to act. He believed in the craft in a big bad way, man. Some people just say, fuck around and say pretend words and shit. Some people like become the character, man, you know, method and shit. George was absolutely that, man. Took it so fucking seriously. When we were making Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, for heaven's sake. He came over, you know, he's got one fucking scene. He comes over, he goes, Kevin, I have a question for you as the author of this piece. And I said, okay. And he goes, it says here the unwritten book of the road, the book of the road. I said, yeah. He goes, okay. Do I believe in this shit? Or am I just fucking with these two assholes? And I was like, well, George, I think you already put more thought into the script than I ever did. I said, but I have to pick a side of the fence. I always felt like the character believed in what he said. That's what I thought, and that's the intent I'm going to play. Thank you very much. And I was like, you're adorable, man. I got to tell you right now. You really could have phoned this one in, man. Like, you're just the guy that blows the trucker. Like, you don't really have to get into the soul of the character. He goes, Kevin, you don't understand a thing about performance, do you? I said, no, explain to me. He goes, as an actor, my job is the subtle art of lifting the window of disbelief and holding it open for the audience to crawl through for just an amount of time. I have to bring emotional honesty to the performance. These are the lies that tell the truth. So in order for me to do that effectively, I have to completely understand where this character is coming from. It doesn't matter how big or small the scene. So when I ask you this, it's not about being a difficult actor. I just need to know how deeply you want me to throat this guy's dick. This much? He's like, thank you. So this began like a beautiful friendship with the guy. Like I got to work with him a few times, and it was all because of Cardinal Blick, man. And he fucking absolutely crushes it. Like from the moment he comes out and fucking like, you know, Christ didn't come to give us the willies. It's absolutely wonderful. All right, where do we want to go next? Yes, right there. Yeah.
So, can you talk about getting the rights back to this movie and like getting it because it was in limbo for a long time?
It was. I didn't get the rights back. I tried. Harvey Weinstein, the guy who you heard of him. He personally owned the movie. Years ago, when we made the movie with Miramax, Disney owned Miramax. And Disney told Harvey, you have to get rid of this movie. It's polemic. Like, fucking, we're hearing from our shareholders. There's too much noise. Get rid of the movie. So Harvey and Bob had done that before. Years prior, they had this movie called Kids by Larry Clark. Rosemary Dawson's first movie. So very rough fucking flick. And eventually Disney was like, you have to get rid of this flick. So Harvey and Bob bought the movie personally and distributed it themselves. So they had done this once before, it was successful. Here was another situation where Disney was like, you have to get rid of this fucking movie. It's too much performing. They said, fine, we will totally do what we did before. And they personally, allegedly, bought the movie. Side note, I never saw a fucking receipt. Like, I honestly don't think they paid for that movie. I think Disney was just like, just get it the fuck off our dockets. It's a crucial part of the story for later on. But in any event, they owned it personally. So, a couple years ago, I wanted to get it back, man. It was like dormant, they weren't doing anything with it, and I don't know if you know this or not, but he went through some legal troubles. So, I heard he needed money, and I was like, well shit, this might be the time. So, I wrote a very heartfelt letter to a convicted rapist. And I said, look, I would love to get this movie back. I know you've made many movies. I've only made a few, and this one is tied in with my faith and my father, and like, it just feels weird. Like in a world where it's just sitting nowhere and you're not doing anything with it, sell it back to me and stuff. And I made an offer of $250,000. We got a response from the lawyer, absolutely not. So I wrote another letter, offered $500,000. Got a responsible lawyer? Absolutely not. At that point, I'm tapped out. That's about all the money I'm good for, and that's every cent in the world that I can fucking pull together and shit. So I have to reach out to other people who may have vested interest in the future of Dogma. I've reached out to Ben Affleck. So, then I was able to go back with an offer of $1 million, and we were still told no. And that was it. There was nothing left to do, anything, like clearly he had a figure in his head, but I was never going to be able to reach that figure. I didn't have the access to resources like that. So that was that. My wife and I, nobody's buying it for $1 million. So I washed my hands of it. I was like, I guess that's the end of the Dogma story. And then 6 months ago, we got a call from these people who were like, we own Dogma. Would you like to come talk to us? And I was like, how the fuck did that happen? And how it happened was an investment group, just brought a tranche of movies off of Harvey. He was trying to get rid of them because he's still got more legal bills and stuff like that. So he had a bunch of movies. He had Larry Clark's Kids, Dogma, he had Fahrenheit 9/11 by Michael Moore, and he had 7 karate movies that he was like slowly distributing with Quentin. So this tranche of movies he sold as one group without, people knowing necessarily it was him. So when they went through it, they were like, Ben Affleck's in this one. And that's the story that I was fucking told, man. And so we're sitting there talking to these people, and there's this girl, Alessandra, and this guy, Bay, and they're in charge of this company. It's not even a studio, it's just an investment fund and stuff. So they're like, we have this asset, we don't know what to do with it, but we figure you might. So I didn't buy it myself, and thank God, because I didn't have that kind of money. But these folks have let me play with it as if I do own it. Their whole point is like, you're the only one that knows how to exploit this. We're not going to be able to do it. And so they're like, what do you like? And I was like, well, I've been touring movies lately. So like, I would love to tour the movie. And they're like, great. And then you could go out on screens, on like 2,000 screens. I was like, oh, that's never going to happen for this movie and shit. And it is on June 5th. One, it turns out, is the girl who was at the meeting, Alessandra, man. She was there, she had her bag halfway through the meeting, a dog plumped out of her bag and shit. And I was like, that dog been in there the whole time? She's like, he loves it. No, I thought she was very sweet and stuff, and she was on all the phone calls and whatnot, but I thought she was just managing this fund or whatever that had these movies in it. And so, 4 days ago, we get the story of what happened. And Alessandra is the girl who grew up in our neck of the woods and stuff like that. She used to work in Red Bank at a store called Coco Paris. That's where the Jane Silent Bob Secret Stash is. It's my hometown. So she knew the area. She said something about, like, I heard she had a short film, and I was talking about putting it in the Smod Castle Film Festival. And she was like, oh great, my mom could go see it. And I was like, your mom? What do you mean? She's like, she lives in Atlantic Island. So I was like, your mother lives in Atlantic Island, New Jersey? This is the first time you fucking mentioned it? She's like, I also worked at Coco Paris in Red Bank. I was like, who the fuck are you? So she grew up, and she said she saw the movie when she was 10 years old, fell in love with it. She was like, my mom was really irresponsible and let me watch all of her movies. She's gone, and I went off and had a life and a career and whatnot. And then I saw you talking about trying to get the movie back. And so I felt like I should help. So she fucking reached out also to Harvey Weinstein, and through the lawyer started a negotiation to get the flick. He was giving her the runaround like me, trying to get way more money and stuff. But at the end of the day, like that whole fucking library and stuff, those titles that he sold off, she was put in charge of them. And the manifest was like, get rid of all of them and you can play with the last movie if you want to, which is exactly what she wanted. So I was like, bro, here, I'm about to go on tour. Like, the movie's gonna come out on 2,000 screens, and it's all because of you, and it's just because you liked it when you were 10 years old and shit. And she's like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you because I thought that would seem creepy. So, unbelievable turn of good fortune. When we first joined them, we did our due diligence to make sure that dude wasn't connected anymore. Because there was at one point, somebody was like, hey, you want to put Dogma out again? We can get Dogma. I was like, fuck yeah, man. I was like, Harvey's not attached, right? They're like, well, we would have to kick back 20%. I was like, I can't fucking do that. Like, I cannot be involved in this movie if he's anywhere near it anymore. So Alessandra like rescued the movie, and that's why I get to take it out and tour it. And that's why next year we're talking about doing a fucking sequel, man. Okay, where do we want to go next? Yes, right there. No? Yes. Going like this. Yeah. What's your name?
Chris, or Panda sometime.
Panda? I won't give it up for Panda. Panda's next.
For years, ever since I saw Clerks on VHS. Actually, I wanted to comic book man at Dartboard TV about.
Oh shit, you got one of those?
Yeah, I found out at a thrift store in Orange County.
It was a thrift store in Orange County. Oh fuck. I wish I found it, man. I get money for that on fucking. We do auctions at Smart Castle all the time. And so, like, I did once bring up a comic book man dartboard, man. We got $500 for it. What'd you pay? What'd you pay for it? I know a place you can sell it for minimum $500. That fucking rocks, man. That was they gave it out one year as the rap gift. And I think season 5 when we wrapped, we all got dartboards with our faces on it. I was like, kind of mixed messages this shit.
So I was at Cusp today, but I didn't even ask you this question. It's something I've been wondering ever since I started working movies. Just kind of growing up, seeing Clerks 3 makes for that whole labor emotion or trafficking, things like that.
Yes. I've met so many people on the internet who were like, it was Friday night, and I was just looking for some laughs, and I said, ooh, Clerks 3. Fuck you to death, Justice for Dante.
I just got one question for you.
Fire away.
What's a Nubian?
Yes, well done, Panda. Well done, Panda. It's been a while since somebody did that. I didn't even see it coming. I like set up to get to it. Well done. All right, how about a real fucking question? Way up top there, go ahead.
Do you ever plan on showing the Schumacher cut on Batman Forever?
We did. We showed it at Smart Castle. When was it? I don't know, 8 months ago or something like that. Maybe 9 months ago. Somebody gave me, and I saw him last night. He was at the screening. A guy named Joe Black, literally, gave me a copy of the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever, the extended version of the movie and stuff. So it was cool to watch, and then people were like, hey man, we want to see it, shit. And so we had some event where it's like, if you stick around afterwards, there may be a movie you might want to watch forever. And so people came and watched the fucking thing, and that's how we got away with doing it without, getting in trouble and shit. And it was cool. It was really cool. Like, people were dialed into it and stuff. It's not like it's a whole different fucking movie. Like, it's just longer Batman Forever. But some of the stuff is more grown up, more psychological. That's why they cut it out, because they were trying to sell Happy Meals toys again. So, but worth watching. So we'll probably do it again at Smart Castle, and this time we'll probably book it with like a Val film, in honor of Val. We just lost Val Kilmer fairly recently and stuff. So we can have a screening of Real Genius, and it's like, if you stick around. We do all sorts of fun shit at Smart Castle Cinemas. We do a program every year. It's about to happen again soon. Tickets go on sale. It's called Clerks Open All Night. And you get there at 11 o'clock, and at midnight we lock the doors, and we spend all night in the movie theater watching Clerks, Clerks 2, and then have an existential crisis with Clerks 3. And then when it ends at 6 in the morning, and we eat a breakfast catered by Quick Stop. So, shit like that. Like, we love to do activities and bring people in. It's kind of fun. So one of the next ones we're doing is called Smauction, where it's just me on stage auctioning off stuff like the dartboard and whatnot to raise money for the theater. But if you're ever on that side of the country, it's worth going to. Whole fucking place is a giant Kevin Smith museum. Like, all the walls are covered with giant artwork from all the movies and some props and stuff. If you're near Jersey, pop in. Like, if you're ever near Jersey, there's the comic book store, Jake's On Bob's Secret Stash, coming up on year 28, I think it is. And then not too far from the Smart Castle Cinemas. So we give you a lot to do in that area, if you're ever in New Jersey. and I don't recommend ever going. Yeah, sir.
I feel like the movie Red State has aged pretty well.
Yeah, when we made Red State, it was like, oh, this is a fucking fever dream. Obviously, this would never come to pass and shit like that. And now it looks like movie plays more like a true crime drama than fiction and stuff. Look, I'm always happy when shit ages well. You know, some shit doesn't. And oddly enough, like this movie, I was worried, taking it out. I'm like, oh, is it gonna play like a '90s movie? Actually plays fairly current, man. There's a couple very '90s moments, but other than that, it feels like relevant today. Still kind of works and stuff. Which means that, it aged well. Same with Red State. That seems to have aged well. Not everything does. Yoga hosers will never age well. There'll never be a moment where people are like, you know what? 50 years on, I get it. But when it happens, it's an absolutely beautiful thing. What I love about Red State, though, is that's the movie that proves that I could have been a really good filmmaker if I tried. If I wasn't so interested in making Jay and Silent Bob movies and shit. Because if you took my name off Red State and showed it to somebody, they would never be like, oh, this is Kevin Smith. Doesn't look like it, doesn't feel like it, doesn't resemble it, no cast that's normally around, shit like it. It was me trying to do Coen Brothers by way of Quinn. So, if anything, maybe you can identify it as that. If you took my name off and didn't know, I'm proud to say, like, that movie doesn't look like any other Kevin Smith movie. And it's the one that makes me feel like, no matter what they say, I know I could do it, I'm just lazy. Yeah, see, right in the middle, go ahead.
Yeah, so whoever's classic cast and really classic Kevin Smith movie. 2 years ago, my daughter and I got to come see you and Jason Lee at Duke's Brewery, and at the very end of the night, you guys did a little table read for what I think maybe most people in this room are hoping is a project still coming.
You're talking about, I remember that night. You were there for that?
Yes, I was.
That was great. That place don't exist anymore.
I know it sucks. The water was amazing.
It was good. We did a podcast with Jason Lee. At the end of it, we read a scene from Twilight of the Mallrats. And it's on the podcast, you can hear it. But then maybe a year or more later, I went over to Shannon Doherty's place and we did an episode of her show, Let's Be Clear. And she read the exact same scene. So you can, if you've got time, grab that podcast, cut all Brody's dialogue, and grab her podcast, cut all Renee's dialogue, put it together, and hear what that scene would have sounded like. What I did for, I do these comic books, I don't draw them, I write them, quick stops for Dark Horse Comics. This round coming out starts in August, I think. There's an issue that's a kind of all Shannon homage issue. It's got two stories in it. One is a story about me and her, and the other is that scene that we read on her podcast from Twilight of the Mallrats. So, if you're reading the comic and you turn on the podcast, you get to hear Shannon doing the lines. It's very, very sweet. So, just side note, the comics this year, I'm so deeply in comics this year. In June, I've got a Marvel book coming out. I did a story in giant size Spider-Man. They've never done a giant size, and I did a 10-page story, 15-page story. And then after that, the next month in July, one of my favorite things I've ever done in my entire fucking career, a comic book called Archie Meets Jay and Silent Bob. It is so unbelievably wholesome. It's just exactly that. It's Jay and Silent Bob meet all the Archie kids and shit, and they have an adventure together. We're not really an adventure, they just have a thing. And so many people are like, hey man, you gotta have Jay and Bob fucking double teaming Betty and Veronica. I was like, they're fucking teenagers, man. But the book is set in like current continuity for my movie, so it takes place after Clerks 3. And the story is kind of about like Archie comes to work at Quick Stop, and he's so similar to Dante that it helps Randall heal. It's kind of sweet, man, but it's very fucking funny as well. I can't wait till it comes out. like I had never dreamed about doing an Archie thing. They reached out to me. I was like, I could make that fucking work, man. And then after that, Quick Stops begins for 4 issues. There's a Shannon issue. There's a Chasing Amy issue. The Captain Ribman Droop. It's basically the comic book that Holden gives Alyssa in Chasing Amy. We only ever saw the comic and the last page, the cover and the last page. We did the whole book, as if Holden did the whole book. So inside it's like written and drawn by Holden McNeil and shit like that. And basically it tells the story of Chasing Amy, because that was kind of the point of that comic and stuff. But it's cool. It's like almost like having a profit movie, because it's the same cover and shit. And then the third book is we're doing a Dogma related book that's featured heavily on Metatron, Alan's character. It's called Requiem. And in it, Jay and Silent Bob steal the Buddy Christ statue and bring it to a cemetery and try to summon the angel of death. And instead they get Metatron, who hasn't seen them in 25 years. And it's funny, but it's rather sweet, and it's very, like, you know, in honor of Alan. Just like the Shannon issue is a memorial to Shannon, the Rick William issue is a total memorial to Alan and stuff. So yeah, lots of comics work coming out. There's one more too, which is, remember Rick Darris from Clerks? So like at the end of the scene where he's in Quick Stop and shit, and he's with Heather Jones, the girl, and he's like, he's like, hey, you want to go someplace? And she's like, sure, how about the beach? He's like, I like the way you think. He's the trainer guy and shit. They leave, so like we show that in the first page of the comic. Page 2 and 3 is them fucking at the beach. Then the story goes where she's like, why don't you come home and like meet my parents and shit. And Heather Jones is the sister of Trisha Jones from Mallrats, who was writing the book, and the sister of Alyssa Jones from Chasing Amy, and Rick Darris has fucked all 3 of them. So it's called Keeping Up with the Joneses. Yeah, if you like this kind of shit, it continues in the world of comics. All right, where else are we going? Yes, right there. Oh, there's a fucking Bud Light. How about the Lord? Come on, you gotta come up here and ask the question. That's the way to see this movie, man. The star of our show, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to meet you. First off, let's take a selfie and then we'll get into the questions. No doubt. I mean, fucking, I'm honoring this. Another one, never miss one. What the fuck? What if that one gets destroyed? Hold on. You sure you're on camera? What is your question?
So, a little context. My grandma's super Mormon, and obviously was raised Mormon. Every Easter she would show us Jesus Christ Superstar and Dogma. Right?
What a double bill, man.
I loved it. What do you think makes this movie speak to people who are, she's hardcore Mormon, right? She still goes to Sunday, still goes to church, all that kind of stuff. We're super hardcore Mormon there. What do you think makes the movie speak to religious people as much as some religious people hate the movie?
It's an excellent question, my lord. Go ahead, sit down. This will be a long answer. Honestly, I think it's because this movie, as I said at the beginning, is prayer. And somebody who is faithful, somebody who truly believes, can recognizes game with this movie. They can see that this was made by somebody who, you know, he's got a sense of humor, but he believes all that stuff. So I think it's easy for some people to get into it if you get past, you know, the rougher humor, the R-rated stuff. When the movie came out, naturally, no religious people were into it, and they were all fucking protesting and shit. But over the years, since the movie's come out, thanks to the advent of the internet, I've heard from so many fucking clergy who are like, I use this for the youth ministry. Like, there's a fucking dude here who was at the previous screening who I took a quick picture with, like, before I came into here, and he goes, I just want to tell you, I'm a youth pastor, and I show this movie to every group that comes in and stuff. I was like, it's got butt fucking jokes in it. He's like, but it's got more than that. So I think it's that. I think, you know, oddly enough, if they can get past the barrier of entry, which was like, I hear it's a scandal. Older people really fucking love this movie. My mother, like, who was hardcore Catholic, you know, raised Catholic and shit, is her favorite movie of mine that I ever did, because she's like, oh, I know that story. I'm like, what, the Jesus story? She's like, oh yeah, I've known it my whole life. So every reference we dropped, she understood perfectly well. So I can get why some people go for it if they see it. The religious people who just don't even like the idea of this movie are never going to get past that, so they'll never see it and stuff. So I get it. I can see both sides altogether. And I love it when I hear from fucking people in the faith who are like, it's a tool. I use it like a tool. That's something I never imagined when we were making the movie. Suddenly, years later, to hear people be like, no, this movie will bring someone closer to Jesus. Mind-bending for the filmmaker, but I'll take it. Where are we going? Yes, right there.
How much shit do you give Ben for those Dunkin' Donuts commercials?
Let me tell you, I gave him a lot of shit for the first one. Then he put us in the second one, and I stopped giving him shit. Because, oh my God, bro, we were in one of the Dunkin' Donuts spots. It was on the Super Bowl, right? And it was his spot. He directed it. It was so cute. Like, fucking, we were standing on set, and the set was like crazy expensive and shit. Because movie business may be falling apart, but Dunkin' Donuts spending all the money on advertising. So this place is fucking huge and shit. And you know, a lot of bodies moving, a lot of cameras craned and shit like that. Everyone's settling in, getting ready for this big move and shit. He's sitting at this table that's at like a fake convention, and me and Jay are there to get something signed and shit. So he's in director mode and he's in actor mode, because he's going to be on camera because it's his commercial, but he's also directing and shit. So, you know, he's talking to DP last minute, you know, go like this, blah, blah, all the things you do at the end. And then right before we roll, he looks up at me and he goes, you realize this is the first time I've ever gotten to direct you. And I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, you're right. And he was like, watch and learn. It was adorable, man. But they pulled us into that spot at the last minute, like the day before they were shooting it. They were like, hey man, you guys around? You want to come be in this spot? I was like, fuck yeah. And they paid us criminally high. Like, I honestly made more money to be in fucking 5 seconds of that Dunkin' Donut commercial than I've been paid on my last 4 films. As a writer-director, man. So, I used to make fun of him, but now I'm like, hey, you got any more of that Dunkin' Donuts money? Where are we going next? Yes, right there. Yeah, hell yeah. Oh shit, I meant him, but go ahead, keep going. We'll go to you next. Go ahead. Which guys? Affleck loves this movie. Affleck is very, you know, Affleck wanted this movie when I gave him Chasing Amy. He came down from Boston to Red Bank from fucking 96 and shit. I said, dude, you gotta come over, man. I got something for you. And again, this is pre like internet, so it wasn't like, oh, let me just fucking text it to you and shit. So he got on a train and came all the way down from Boston to Red Bank. We hung out, and I gave him Chasing Amy. And he goes, this is fucking thin, man. It was only like 90 pages. I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, how the fuck is it going to last me the whole car ride back to Boston? I said, car ride? You renting a car? And he goes, no, you're going to drive me back. I said, fuck no, I'm going to drive you back. I said, I wrote you part in the movie, that's what you get. And shit. And he goes, well, fucking, it's a long-ass train ride. I need more to read than this shit. And I was like, well, fucking, I got this script that I wrote years ago called Dogma. You want to read that? And he goes, yeah, fucking give it to me and stuff. And when he got back to Boston, he called me, and I was like, hey man, what'd you think of Chasing Amy? He goes, lesbians, yeah, real good. This Dogma movie. He's going, bro, who is playing Bartleby? Because it's me. And I was like, I had never really thought about it before. He goes, I will kill or die to play this fucking part, man. And he's going, listen to this. And he started reading speeches back at me and shit like that. So he was always a big fan of Dogma. And it's not changed. Like, you know, at the premiere, I remember fucking him just pulling me aside, being like, "This is a masterwork, man. Like, fucking, I know you did Mallrats, but this makes this." He also said, like, I remember my kid was there wearing the angel wings and shit. And Ben's like really good with kids and picks them up. He's fearless and shit. He picked her up and he was just like, "Hi, I'm your father." And I remember my wife was like, "I don't remember that." Because I think I would have. But he loves the flick. He maintains it's the best I've ever been and shit like that. Matt, same thing. Like, there ain't one of them that's like, I regret it. So. I haven't spoken to Linda in a while. The last time I did via Facebook, she was still way on board with the movie and stuff. Muse, like, it's funny, last night he was standing there next to me watching it, and he leans over, he's like, "Do you know I've never seen this in a movie theater?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" And it's true. Like, he was going through his drug shit back then and whatnot. So even the New York Times, the New York Film Festival, he was there for the red carpet in the beginning, and then fucking got fucked up and didn't stick around for the movie or the Q&A afterwards, where everybody was waiting to blow him because he was the best actor in the fucking movie and shit. So he was sitting there laughing. Like, and laughing in the way I was like, "Did you ever see this movie?" But the revelation to most in our world, particularly my kid, she's never seen the movie and shit. She always knew Jason was funny. She was a fucking co-star of his in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. But she was like, "Dad, Jason is fucking brilliant in this movie." I was like, "Yeah, that's why I kept making Jay and Silent Bob movies, man." Right then and there, after this one, I was like, "Oh, he ready. You know, I could ride this kid for the rest of my life." But yeah, I've not heard from anybody. It's just like, doesn't do it for me. Alan was the biggest fan of Dogma on the planet, man. Hands down. George liked the idea of it and stuff, but he was never like, "Fuck, that movie's great." But Alan, every time we talked, he would always talk about like, "Oh, Dogma." He was perfect. All right, where do we go now? You. Remember I said you, and it was you. Go.
I have a question. What is your favorite comic?
Favorite comic book of all time?
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. That shit was my Bible for a while. There's a beautiful passage on page 1 of that book, man. That's very inspiring to me. It starts with Bruce Wayne in a race car, if you remember. He's testing out a race car on Ferris track. And he starts talking in the narration. Something's going wrong and stuff. And he's like, you know, "I take this turn, I'm about to explode, fireball, and die at 110 miles per hour." And then he says, "This would be a good death," which always fucking hit me. Like, fucking whoever says shit like that, like, "I want a good death." It's just like, wow, that's a fucking cool thought. But then he turns the wheel in the next panel, he goes, "But not good enough." And the adventure begins. If he doesn't decide to turn the wheel, the book is over on page 1. He's like, "This would be a good death," the end. But instead, our hero is like, "This would be a good death," and he's ready. And he's like, "But not good enough." And fucking because of that, we go on the most wild Batman adventure ever written. 4 issues that take him from man to man who fights God. Like, it's fucking brilliant. And it's just metal as fuck, man. Like, it just looks fucking fantastic. And that's the Batman that we all know and love today. Frank Miller really fucking reshaped and redefined that character, took it back to its origins, made it insanely marketable, and now that's the Batman they keep making over and over again. So I absolutely love that book. All right, right there, that's it.
Thank you for cooking. This is my 14-year-old son, and he fell in love with you tonight, and I'm really proud of you.
Are you serious? Every time a young kid likes the Kevin Smith movie, an angel gets its wings. Oh my God, that means the world. Thank you. That's great. I got a lot of old people. I need more young people. All right, right there, dead center. Yes, you, lady. Yeah, go on.
So, you've been discussing.
No, yes, go.
Well, we've been discussing a lot of this.
No, wait, you. Yeah, you, one in your face, holding up your hair. Yes, you go. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, generally has nothing. There are no muses in the Bible or anything like that. I was kind of using her as an angelic character, like one of the choirs of angels, which muses are not. But I was like, oh, this is how I get to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the world, art, and how and where it intersects with religion and faith and stuff. The idea of somebody who could write for everybody, but really long to like write for themselves and stuff. That captured my imagination. So even though it's not biblical and it has nothing to do with Christianity or whatnot, you know, it felt adjacent enough to kind of slip in there. But that's the, you know, that kid who wrote this movie, aside from like all the religious shit he believed in, that's who he was, and still is to this day, man. I know it's corny as fuck, but I'm one of those people that believe that art could save the world and stuff. So, me including that in the adventure was, you know, me kind of going, oh, and I know we're speaking for the religious, and we're speaking for this, and speaking for this. I would like to throw in a thing for the arts, and so it blended in there. But yeah, you're right. There's a moment where she gives a whole fucking speech about like Elvis was an artist and shit. Yeah, it sucks when your old work is trying to tell you something. I'm listening. All right, it was you, the one who I said, no, not you, but you. Go.
So first off, I props to my husband for taking me. He brings me to all of your things. He's a huge fan.
Thank you,
You know,
man.
we went to the movies.
You went to the movies, Papa?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, thank you for that. Oh, shit.
I have to remind him constantly not to wear his suck on me until I go.
From Clerks 3 tour.
Yeah, not but I did want to ask something that I found in the movies that my husband was showing me of yours. Often you hear the job of representation, and especially with Ursula Klopp's character. I mean, that's often black people. We're not mentioned in the Bible. Honestly, let's be for real. Like, we know what color Muslims are.
Yes.
And so you have such a focus on Jesus' character, and also some higher themes such as the main character is great niece of Jesus Christ. So just, I was wondering, do you often collab with female writers or POC, or how do you often portray these characters when it is so invested? What a lot of no-offense white males can do.
So, believe me, this white male has failed as well. I'll find a bunch of critics who'll tell you that. I grew up around very strong women. Women have kind of shaped my entire existence and stuff. I'm not saying I was a mama's boy or something, but like, my mom was a pretty prominent figure in my world, and I wouldn't call her outspoken, but she knew exactly who the fuck she was. Because of that, I was attracted to women like that for the rest of my life. My high school girlfriend was very much that, smarter than me. I was always attracted particularly to women who were much smarter than me, because that means I could learn something as well as get a hand job. So, when you write, or at least when I write, you always try to write the ideal world, your ideal world, how women would talk to one another if you were in charge. Because like me and my friends' conversations, they sounded nothing like the conversations my characters have in the movies. They're very circumspect. Like, what'd you do last night? Got laid? And that's it. In the movie, I can fucking do that in 5 pages. Make it sing like music and stuff. So, when you write, man, there's a lot of guesswork. Like, I remember writing Chasing Amy and then giving it to Wayne Turner afterwards to be like, can you proofread this? Because I've never been a lesbian, and, she was just like, she read it and she goes, what is tongue fucking? And I was like, that's not a thing? She goes, never heard of it. I was like, I'll take that out. So it helps to have strong women around you. It helps to have strong women shaping your life. It helps when, through most of my life prior to becoming a filmmaker, the central preoccupation of my existence was, who will love me? Who will I sleep with? Who is mine? Who is the other? My father and mother modeled the relationship for years and whatnot. When will that happen to me? I'm looking for that same model. And that model is predicated on a guy who doesn't say that much. That was my father. My sister maintained that's where you stole Silent Bob. She was like, Dad never talked until he had the perfect thing to say. And then it was funny and he shut the fuck up. But he let my mom run our lives, run the world. You know, my dad worked and brought home the bacon, and that was about it. And Mom did literally everything else. So that was my model growing up. Like, I saw movies where women and girls were depicted way different than the girls and the women that I knew and hung around with all my life and stuff like that. Not saying like they can't be fun and shit, but they weren't playthings. They were human beings with thoughts and feelings and fucking dreams, just like fucking me and my friends and stuff. So, if you ask people that don't like my shit, they'll be like, "You don't write good women. He just writes Kevin Smith characters and takes their dicks away." But I honestly feel like I got a pretty good ear for it at this point. Like, I think I was stronger when I was younger. I don't know, maybe it'd be tough to figure out. In terms of people of color, like a lot of that was guesswork as well, because I grew up in a pretty white world and stuff. Not like militant white, but like it's just very white on the Jersey Shore. So, we had, where I was introduced to people of color mostly was through culture, through pop culture, through television, through movies, through music and stuff. And then later on in life, I actually met some people of color when I went to high school, and I was like, oh my God, you exist. And then the world gets bigger. But Chris Rock, when he read the script, he said something similar. He was just like, you nailed brother talk. And I was like, well, I've been listening to Eddie Murphy my whole life. So yeah, it's not like I sit down with people and be like, talk and study and stuff like that. But you watch a lot of media and whatnot. And also at the end of the day, everyone sounds like each other. Like, it's just dialogue. And when I'm writing it 9 times out of 10, I have no idea what the person who's going to say it looks like, you know what I'm saying? In Rufus's case, he better be black. It's a big part of the story right there. But thank you, man. It's been a while since somebody was like, you can write girls well. Thanks, man. That used to be a thing in my life. And then later on, people were like, you used to do everything well. What happened? All right, where are we going next? Yes, right there.
So I went to school in Pittsburgh and learned about this movie because my teacher was an extra. I came to school and they were retired. I'm sorry, I'm filming this movie coming out. Dogma, these guys in it.
He went to Pittsburgh. Where did you go to Pittsburgh school? Hampton. He went to the school in Pittsburgh, and one of his teachers was in Dogma. Did he say who he was?
In the airport scene, she's like walking around. My math teacher.
Your math teacher is in the background?
Yeah. So we found out about it, and I went home and was like, oh, hold on, first. And I was like, oh, this new Dogma movie looks great. And then we went out, there was like a protest happening in Pittsburgh, and they're like,
As well, yeah. Pittsburgh was a wonderful home, so that's where we shot the movie in Pittsburgh, which I went to because my high school girlfriend, Kim Lochran, went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. So I had gone out to Pittsburgh and fucked with it and shit. And when they were, years later, we were making movies and they're going through possible places to shoot this, we were looking for, it was church dependent. So everything would be built around finding the church. We couldn't use a Catholic church because the Catholic church would have been like, you're out of your fucking mind. So we had to find a desanctified Catholic church. So that limited us down to a certain amount of locations. One of them was Pittsburgh. So as they were reading through, they were blah, 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 Pittsburgh. I was like, Pittsburgh? I've been there. I've had sex in Pittsburgh. Let's go there. So we wound up going to Pittsburgh for that and for Zach and Mary. Great town. They've always been really supportive of us and to us. And made my movies better.
So my question is a little not related to Dogma, but how do you get in the mix with Dungeons and Dragons pinball? And is there going to be a Phantom pinball or something?
The question is, how did I get in the mix with the Dungeons and Dragons pinball game, and is there going to be a Jay and Bob pinball? The good folks at Stern, is that right?
Yeah.
Stern Pinball made this Dungeons and Dragons game and asked me to do a voice. There's a bunch of people doing voices on it. Gerard Way is one of the voices. The guy who played Worf, what's his name? Michael Dorn, he's one of the voices and shit. So, they asked, you want to do a voice? I said, oh God, what an honor, absolutely. they're like, we'll give you a pinball table. I was like, well, fucking, you had me at hello. You know? So did it, and I actually played the game on my friend's show, Matt's show. He's got a pinball show. So I got to actually test it out, play it on the live stream. As for whether we're working on a pinball machine or not, like, here, I'll say it this way. Ever since I was a young man, I played the silver ball. Fingers crossed. It's looking good, man. And that's like, the longer, you know, I get to stay in this career and shit, which has been wonderful, and every fucking day I'm wondering when they're going to kick me out and whatnot. But the longer I'm in it, the more I get to rack up weird things that like I'd never thought about. And the notion of a fucking, I never in a million years thought I made movies that would lend themselves to like a pinball game. So it's just one of those things where I was like, I've lived long enough where that's a possibility. Fuck, man. Yeah. I got. There's a one coming. The folks from Stern are sending me a Jaws pinball, the 15th anniversary.
Ooh, that's the really ones.
So yeah, it's gonna be in the house. It's gonna be fucking loud. All right, kids, where are we going? Way up top, I see a hand right there.
Whatever happened to RST video?
RST Video, well, they went out of business like most video stores, but it became a storage closet essentially. So we shot it for Clerks 3. It became THC Video. Jay and Bob took it over, and that's where their weed business is. But in the real world, like video stores shut down, Jesus, almost 20 years ago, I think, at this point. And the folks that own Quick Stop, Rajiv, the Topper family, they use it for storage. I remember I went in there once, and it was nothing but paper towels, boxes of paper towels during COVID and shit. They were hoarding paper towels. And you couldn't move around and shit. So when we went to do Clerks 3, we had to take everything out and rebuild the place to look like it did in the first movie. But it's still there, it's just not operating at all. Now it's pretty much Rajiv's office. Last time I saw, he went in there and like locked the door and he had a desk and shit like that. So he was using it as his own personal space. Yeah, right up in the corner. Yeah. Chasing Amy soundtrack. Fuck, man. Yeah, it's been a minute. We almost had one years and years ago. We had a title track recorded by John Bon Jovi called Chasing Amy and shit. I still have it on tape somewhere. I gotta track it down. It's a fucking pretty fire song and shit. And he gave it to us. He was like, hey man, I wrote a song for your movie. I was like, get the fuck out of here. And then a week later, I guess Mercury, his record label, he was coming out with a solo album. And they're like, you can't fucking give that movie a song. You got your solo album coming out. And he was like, hey, I gotta take that song back. So he took it back. And so the soundtrack went with it as well. For a while, the good folks, there was a news site called News Askew, used to cover all the work we do. They did a soundtrack, Brad and Chris, like minted their own like CD soundtrack that they used to give out and stuff. But nobody's done one yet. That being said, we, have been doing records lately and shit. We did a Clerks, we did a Jay and Silent Bob reboot. We've got a Tusk album coming and stuff. So there's a distinct possibility that there could be a Chasing Amy present. It just comes down to how expensive the songs are at the end of the day. Yes.
Would you ever think about re-releasing any of your movies on VHS?
Oh, good question. We talked in the hallway. Would I ever consider re-releasing any of my movies on VHS? Yes. Why do you ask?
Well, because there might be an opportunity if perhaps we might be able to email later in the future.
Explain.
Well, we have recently re-released a couple of movies with Troma Entertainment, including The Toxic Avenger on VHS.
Fucking A.
And then I think, of course, your movies, they're a little bit better.
The Toxic Avenger? That's
way better. So I think that might be a great opportunity, especially with now a lot of physical media making a huge comeback.
Very true. I don't own this movie, as I said previously, but I can ask the people that own the movie if they're interested. They are going to monetize this within an inch of its life. So if they can make a nickel off of doing it, trust me, they will do that. So I'd love to see it on VHS. Say again? Buy it? I'll tell them that. Look at a bunch of people who want to buy a bunch of dead technology.
Right.
Rewind. Yes, all the way at the top. great question. Would I change anything about the theology of Dogma now, having lived 26 years since Dogma happened? Yes. I thought about it the other day. Because there's a scene, we were doing a tech check of the print, the digital print, when we were shooting some promos the other day in Los Angeles. And it was the scene with Cardinal Blick, where it's like, the Catholic Church does not make mistakes. And we brought up like the two examples that we bring up, and as I was sitting there in the theater, like watching that clip, because we were doing something, but then we just kind of got lost in the movie because George is so magnetic. I sat there thinking, if I was doing this scene today, I would talk about all the child rape, man. Like, how would you not? That's something that wasn't, believe me, it was happening. We just didn't know about it as much. When we made that movie. Years later, that's a factor, man. There's a reason that the numbers of the Catholic Church have gone down over time. And yes, changing patterns and feelings and notions about religion and whatnot. But also, I just don't think people feel like, I'm not sending my kids to that place, man. Like, fucking, I've heard too many bad stories and shit. So that would be something I feel I would have to kind of weave in there, which isn't really about theology, but it does have something to do with the institution.